Alright guys, welcome to part 4 now of the RSBot Weekly episode 1. We're going to be going through the loop, getting the profit, and just a bit more stuff, and then the script is going to be pretty much finished. So how do we get a profit? Well, first of all, we create a variable x, which is going to hold the actual profit we made. And basically, if we mine clay, then we are assigning to x the value of the clay times the number of clay mined. So that's repeated for every item here. So if we mine tin, then we multiply tin price by tin mined. That's the way to do it. And then we return the value of the profit gained. So pretty simple stuff there. We get into the loop then. This is an interesting location to be at. The first thing we do is set the speed of the mouse to a random value between 5 and 9. And notice that we are changing the speed of the mouse every run of the loop through. I don't know if this is a good idea. So basically, every time we run the loop, which is a few times per second, a lot of times per second, we change the speed of the mouse. So it's not going to be something reasonable, I guess, when moving the mouse from one place to another. However, since it's so fast, I don't know if this change is noticeable, like a sudden change in speed, or if it's more like an irregular movement of the mouse around the screen. And if it's the latter, then this is okay to do. If it's a former, then I don't think this is a good idea. But I don't know, so I'm not going to give any suggestion on that. And then we get into the enumeration. So we go to the getState method first, and this is basically our loop. And if we go to the loop, which should be at the top, let's do this. Where are you, loop? Here. We're going to switch depending on the state. So the loop is now divided into two parts. The first part is the getState method, and this getState method will change the state depending on where we are or what we have to do. And the loop will actually do the stuff depending on the case. So we switch depending on the state, and if we are doing the case for walk to bank, then if we are at East Barrock, we walk path reverse East Barrock, and this is a method inside the script, so I'll go through that. If we're on West Barrock, we reverse the path of West Barrock bank to mine, and we walk it. And this is just a small anti-ban check, as you know. And the same thing repeats for walk to mine. Walk path reverse basically just reverses the path and walks to the destination using a nice walking method, which I'll go through in a few moments. And we've got the case mine, which basically mines rocks, and I'll go through that method next. And again, the anti-ban check. In the case bank, we bank. There's a method called bank here in this method, and I'll go through that as well. If we are dropping all, then we do the drop all method. I'll go through that. And in case we're in drop 2, we use a drop 2 method, which is a method to drop 2 ores, I guess. And finally, we go through the drop hybrid method, which drops in a hybrid fashion, I suppose. I don't know what the method is. And if we're doing the random, we just execute the mouse movements and the anti-ban. So I guess this is just to do random stuff in the screen. And so that's pretty much the general view of the loop. Now let's get into the getState method. Okay, so this is the most complicated method in the script, probably. Notice that it's pretty large. Let's go. This is the first segment of the method. I'll go through that first, and this only works for East Barrock. So if we're in East Barrock, we are going to perform the following stuff. If we have selected drop all and we are in mine area, then we check for if the inventory is full, and we drop all. We return state.dropAll. And what this is basically doing that if we have selected drop all and we're in the mining area, then we can drop all, and we return drop all, and then in the loop we will perform what is supposed to do drop all. So if we go to the loop, drop all, execute a drop all method, which itself just inventory drop all accept pickaxes. So notice how this top-down design of the script helps a lot in the organization of the same script. Basically, we check for if the conditions for dropping are met. Then we we return a value, and in the loop, which is basically what runs our script from beginning to end, we execute what it's supposed to do, and the final method is what actually interacts with the RSBot client and tells it to drop everything except the pickaxes in this case. Okay, let's go back to the getState method. And if we are not in the area, mine area, or we haven't selected drop all, then we guess that we are mining, so we return mine. And if our player animation is not -1, which is when it's idling, when we return state random, because we can perform the anti-ban since we're actually mining and we're not having to do anything apart from moving the mouse randomly in the screen. Okay, so what if drop all has not been selected? What if M2D2 has been selected? Then we do something pretty interesting here. If we are mining tin, then we do this. If we're mining copper, we do that. If we're mining iron, we do this. And also, the count of ores inside our inventory must be over 1. So actually must be 2 or more. We'd return drop 2, which basically drops the 2 ores at the top left location of the screen. Or maybe he uses the bottom right 2 ores, I don't know. We'll find out later. And that works for all of the methods, so sorry, for all of the clauses, so yeah. And finally, if our inventory count is not over 1 or we're not mining any of these, then we guess that our player is still mining, and if the animation is -1, then we mine. If it's not -1, this means we're mining, we actually perform the anti-ban. And the same thing happens with the hybrid. Only that this is pretty interesting. X is assigned a value between 4 and 8, and if we're mining tin, our inventory count is over X, so over 4 to 8, we drop 2. This is just like the drop 2 method, but only that it doesn't necessarily wait for the 2 ores to be in our inventory to drop. It can stockpile a few more ores. So this is interesting. Definitely a good use of randomization there for the anti-ban. And here, notice that previously we did if getMyPlayer getAnimation is equal to -1. Here, the programmer decided to switch back to using the mining animation for something. So if the current animation of myPlayer is not equal to mining animation, means we can mine, so we mine, and if not, we return random. And then if the inventory is full, but we have not selected any dropping methods, which basically if we go here, we notice that power mining, if power mining is selected, we do all of this. If power mining is not selected, then we check for if the inventory is full, and if it is, we walk to the bank and we return state walk to bank. So in the loop, we will actually walk to the bank. And if we are in the area, bank area, then we bank. And if we're not in either area, so we're not in the mine area and we're not in the bank area, we must be somewhere in between both areas, but we still have to walk to the bank, so we return that state. And if our inventory is not full and we are inside the mining area, we mine if our animation is equal to -1, and if not, if we are inside the mine area but we are idling, so we are not idling, we can perform the anti-ban. And if we're not inside the mining area and our inventory is not full, we can walk to the mine because we need to mine. So that applied for East Barrock. The same thing goes on with West Barrock. Exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. And in Remington, exactly the same thing, but only we don't have the banking part. So we just have the power mining part. We don't have the else for that part. Notice that is closes here. It doesn't have an else. And we return state random if we have finished doing all of this stuff. So that was a pretty interesting way to do it. You can do it this way. It's pretty more difficult than the normal loop at the start, but then it's just as powerful as the loop, if not more. So yeah, you can do this way if you want to. And then we got here the anti-ban. So this is a small method for the anti-ban. And basically we just create a random integer between 0 to 6, and depending on what the number is, we do some stuff or another. So let's go through it now that we still have time. So if this number gave us 0, if a random number between 1 and 45 equals 2, then we execute all of this. And basically what we do is check for the players. So we move our mouse over the players and check their stats and that sort of good jazz that everyone likes to do while we're mining. So this is complicated stuff here. This is complicated stuff. Actually, not too complicated, but just a bit. Basically, we're creating an RS player array. And what an RS player array can hold is RS players. So we assign to that array all of the players inside the screen, and we then run through all of the players there are in the array. That's pretty much it. And then this gets all of the players in the minimap, so all of the players that are loaded in our current screen region. And if the player is on the screen, then we move the mouse over it and we click the right button. So if we click false, then we click the right button, and if we click true, we click the left button. And then we sleep to random amounts of time. That's pretty random. And we move the mouse randomly around just to get rid of the annoying pop-up window that appears when we right-click a name. So that's case 0. Case 1, we move the mouse randomly. Case 2, we change the altitude of the camera. Case 3, we open a random tab in our inventory. So we do that by doing the open tab in the game class, and tabs have a number from 0 to 15, so from 0 to 14, and we open a random tab from those, and we move the mouse randomly. In case 4, we do the same thing, but we don't move the mouse randomly at the end, we just sleep. Case 5, we check the mining experience. That's pretty interesting to do. And this uses interfaces which I haven't covered with you guys in my tutorials yet, but I will pretty soon, so you will be able to understand this. Basically just know that he opens the tab 8, which is the stats tab. Case 6, we change the altitude of the camera again, and the default we don't do anything. Yeah, that's the anti-ban. I know I haven't gone through it in perfect detail, but trust me, it's just what it's supposed to do. Okay, so let's get into the dropping methods. We've got drop all, drop to, and drop hybrid, and this is pretty bad because all of them do the same thing. They obviously have not been programmed yet, so I'm not going to be able to explain what each method does, but I believe that this one drops 2 ores between mining operations or something like that, and this was does something similar. So yeah. Okay, so let's go to part 5, where we're going to be covering mining and banking, and that's pretty much going to be it. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.